galera, aqui é Celso Machado. Estamos aqui com um dos principais guitarristas do cenário mundial, Gambale, que influenciou e influencia até hoje guitarristas no mundo inteiro. Ele ficou muito conhecido por diversos artistas com quem ele se apresentou, e principalmente com Chico, que na década de 80 ele fez turnês mundiais com a Electric Band. Frank, it's an honor for us to have you here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
The first question is what influenced you most to pick up the guitar as your main instrument?
Well, I had two older brothers, and they were very enthusiastic about the guitar, and so I was the youngest one, and I was about 6 or 7 years old, so I just wanted to be like them.
Right.
And so we were listening to a lot of stuff, Jimi Hendrix at the time. It was kind of towards the end of the 60s, and it was a very great period of music where I was very influenced by a lot of great English blues guitar players and Hendrix, like that. And I thought, I want to be like them.
And was there a band also that you liked, or it was mainly guitarists?
Actually, it wasn't only guitar players. I liked John Mayall, who was an English blues artist, and I just loved the way he sang. And his songs were always interesting. They weren't the typical blues chord progressions, and so I was kind of a big fan of his. But I listened to the Beatles and all that kind of stuff at the same time. I liked pop music, and so I was influenced by a lot of radio, the stuff I was hearing on the radio, as well as the blues guitar players.
You are very known for your technique on the guitar, especially for the sweep picking.
Right.
And when did you start using that technique, or did you started it? Were you the first one to?
Well, I always say I'm the originator of the technique. There's arguments about this. People say, oh, there was a couple of guys before me in the 60s that did it. But no one, if I have to wave my own flag, no one did it ever in the world like I do it. And the people that did it before me did it was like one word in a novel. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and I took the technique, and I was about 15 when I started doing it, maybe a little younger. And it was incredibly logical to go across strings this way with the right hand picking. And it was a thing that I developed, and it became this monstrous technique that now is considered part of the guitar lexicon, it's part of the guitar techniques. Just like Eddie Van Halen with his tapping technique. There was a time before Van Halen when there was no tapping. And just like me, really, there was no time before me that there was a sweeping technique. Yeah. It's one of the techniques that's accepted now, but at the time when I was coming up, it was considered impossible to do for any length, and impossible to do it in time. And so I wrote a book about it. In 1984, I released a book called Speed Picking. And in 1986, a video called Monster Licks and Speed Picking. And those are the established methods for the technique. Every book I've ever seen written on sweeping is derivative of my work. Yeah. And I've just completed a new book called The Definitive Sweep Picking Manual, which brings current the last 20 years of stuff that I've developed. And I'm going to release that in a video form. Yeah. I'm developing a new website for instructional guitar, and it doesn't have a website yet, but it's coming. I'm going to shoot lots of video. I've already shot a blues course, and I've got lots to say, so I'm going to have a pretty beefy, big, great, and interesting website for guitarists that can study from around the world. Kind of like a guitar university is what I'm hoping to create.
That kind of answers one of the questions here, but before that, did you always live on music, or was there?
I've never had a real job, if that's what you mean. No, it's funny. I've always, since I was 13, when I started playing my first gigs, my brothers
13.
were older. Yeah, my brothers were older, so they were able to sneak me into clubs, and I started making money at 13 playing guitar. And so I've never had a real job. I've always supported myself with music, and you know, it's not easy. A lot of people like the security of a 9-to-5 job with a particular, you know, company or something.
Yeah.
But I've never had that security in my whole life, so I'm actually you know, content that I was able to make a living, and a good living, playing the guitar, because it's my favorite thing to do.
Sure. And when you started playing, when you were 13 with your brothers, what were you playing with your brothers, or were you playing with other artists, or were you playing only your own music? How was it?
No, I was usually playing, the bands, we usually played covers of other bands, and you know, we would be Grateful Dead fans and Eagles and all this stuff. We did a lot of vocal harmonies, and so we did a lot of covers mostly. And it wasn't until right before I left for the US, maybe the 5 years before I left when I was 23 years old, 22, 23, for the USA from Australia. And that's when I was really starting to write my own music, and so it went from there.
Cool. A few years ago I read in an interview that you play very well piano. And did you ever play piano in back in that time or later, professionally, like in a gig?
No.
Or did you use the piano in your concert?
I've actually, you know, had a fantasy of being a piano player. I remember when I was about 17, after 10 years or so of guitar playing, I stopped playing guitar because I wanted to be a piano player. So there was a period of 2 years from when I was 17 to 19 where I didn't play any guitar.
Wow.
So, and I've been playing piano since then, but I don't play it like I play the guitar. You know, I went back to the guitar because of my oldest brother's encouragement. Yeah. You know, he preferred my guitar playing to my piano playing. But I continue to write. I have a grand piano at home. I love the piano. I think it's a great compositional instrument. And I usually write simpler on the piano because I don't have the same technique as I do on the guitar. So when I write on the guitar, it tends to be more complex music. So it's simpler on the piano, so I just, it's the two worlds.
Spending these 2 years focusing on the piano, did it change your way of thinking music, or did it change the way you write music or study music?
Well, I think the thing about the keyboard, I was quite frustrated with certain aspects of the guitar. There are things you can do on the piano that you cannot do on the guitar. Certain chords, certain voicings, especially the close notes. You know, the notes that are right next to each other on the piano, two notes next to each other on the piano are like this on the guitar. So if you want to put 3 of those notes together, you need a hand this long.
Sure.
So, but I've actually invented something else now that I'm quite excited about. Actually, in 2005, I did an album called Raison d'Etre, where I introduced a new tuning that I've stumbled across. It only took me 40 years to discover this, but now I'm able to play just about any chord that a keyboard player can play in the mid-range. Any chord. Because this has been an obstacle on guitar with the standard tuning for a long time. It's difficult to explain, but the tuning requires that some of the strings are in different octaves, lower octaves, and this is you know, one of these aha, you know, moments, because alternate tunings, usually you tune the strings down or something, but then all the shapes change, so it's like starting again. But if you change the octaves, the note is the same. So any guitar player can pick up this tuning and start playing all the regular chords, but there's a million new ones. And I honestly believe it could be another standard tuning. There's never been another standard tuning. So I think it's almost as, well, it's as exciting as my discovery of sweep picking, that development. So, wow, that's a whole other thing, which I will be recording more with this tuning very soon.
Cool. You were one of the first guitarists that I saw doing that thing on the B string with the fret, you know, changing the
oh, yeah, well that wasn't
slightly.
my invention. That was an invention by an Australian guitar player. And I found out about it through my brother who knew this guy, and we put it on some of the, on the Yamaha model that I had for a while, my signature guitar. And the company was never able to get it to market, sadly, but it was a good thing to help with the guitar tuning, the fundamental, you know, keeping the guitar in tune. Because the 12 frets on a guitar per octave is sort of a compromise.
Yeah.
Some of the intervals work, but thirds are very sharp. So it was a compromise so that we could play in all 12 keys. But it's a compromise. Some intervals suffered worse. So consequently, some intervals sound out of tune all the time on the guitar. It's just how it is, you know.
And
You can't change the physics of that. Can't change it. It's just the way it is, you know.
And what would be your advice for musicians to develop their musicality and their technique?
Well, it might sound surprising, but I've never really practiced technique. I think it's more important to have a really strong understanding of music and harmony, theory, and that's what springs my ideas. And, you know, to play ideas, I follow my musical ideas, and it doesn't mean that it's necessarily easy to play. I can decide that I want to play a very difficult arpeggio or something on the guitar, which requires a lot of technique, but to me, it comes from a musical place, not from a technical place.
Yeah.
So I don't like to put the cart before the horse. If you only practice technique, that's all you end up with in the end, and you don't have the musicality.
Yeah.
So, studying music, studying your favorite artists, copying, stealing all you can, and then discovering your own style eventually. Yeah.
That's awesome. So thank you for
You're welcome.
sharing a bit of your background, your story, your career. Bom, galera, com vocês, Fran Gambale, muito obrigado por estar nos assistindo. Não se esqueça de se inscrever no canal da Escola Verbo Vivo aqui no YouTube. É isso aí, muito obrigado.